around the nation. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday afternoon. We got a big show for you guys today. Lots of interesting stuff, including Trump's victory lap, which involves going after his political enemies. So we've got that. We've got some tweets. We've got some video on Donald Trump specifically pointing out Mitt Romney and why I don't actually feel bad about for Mitt Romney. So we're going to talk about that. We have conservatives that are very triggered by Nancy Pelosi. Also, a bit of a controversy, obviously, but still, it's always fun to see Republicans cry. So there's that. Then we go over to some news about Iowa. We actually have a couple of Iowa stories, including how Bloomberg is that's a very suspect source now, because of its links to the Bloomberg campaign, or just the fact that it's his literal paper. How they're reporting that part of the problem in Iowa was Trump trolls clogging the lines. So we're gonna examine that. I want to talk about that actually, and hey, we'll look at what what their evidence is, and all that stuff. So interesting stuff. Then we've got Bernie Sanders' new fundraising and his path to the nomination. You'd love to see it. You know you'd love to see it. All right. Anyway, so that's the show today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you can get that out. And we will just start by having a little bit of fun at Romney and Trump's expense. It's always fun. All right. President Donald Trump was acquitted by the Senate yesterday. It was a totally expected move. We knew that it was going to happen. But one thing that was not quite expected was Mitt Romney voting to convict Donald Trump on one article of impeachment. That, of course, is the abuse of power, but ended up acquitting him on the second charge, which is, of course, obstruction of Congress. So, one, but that one is enough to fire up Donald Trump to go after Romney. So now at 12:22 a.m. last night, the newly acquitted president, instead of hosting a little bit of a victory party and a little bit of celebration at the White House, his celebration was, of course, heading right to Twitter and tweeting not only against Mitt Romney, but Obama as well. Quote, had failed presidential candidate Mitt Romney devoted the same energy and anger to defeating a faltering Barack Obama as he sanctimoniously does to me, he could have won the election. Read the transcripts. Here we go. Now, look, maybe now that impeachment is over, maybe Donald Trump might release the actual transcript instead of keeping it locked in a secret vault meant for classified information. Maybe. My guess, probably not. But you can see already he has begun the retaliation against Mittens. So now, and the reason, of course, is because Donald Trump is super petty, and he's going to turn up that petty to 11. But again, we know. Now, there's also news that other Republican congressmen, and this is related here for that very reason, the pettiness, that there were a lot of Republican congressmen that voted to acquit, not because they believed the president was innocent of the charges. No, you had people like Lamar Alexander said, no, we absolutely know the president had done this and that he is guilty of these crimes. But you know what? We don't think it's impeachable. We don't think you should remove a sitting president. And apparently they do that or did that because they were afraid. This was out of fear of Donald Trump tweeting at them. And then, of course, them subsequently losing their jobs in elections because, again, they're afraid of the base. So, look, Republicans are a bunch of spineless cowards. And but look, just because the rest of the Republicans are spineless cowards does not mean that Mitt Romney is a paragon of strength, that he suddenly grew a spine if you're doing an X-ray of Mitt Romney, you might find like tiny little traces of a tiny little spine, but not that much. Okay, um, and that's because, of course, Mitt Romney is actually really safe. Okay, and so that's the problem here. He was just elected in Utah as a senator for the next 6 years, get a 6 year term. Um, and he's got a strong base there with Mormons, right? So very, very strong base. Now they despise Donald Trump over immigration, and so yes, Mormons are generally pretty conservative, but that immigration look, and it's because the Mormons have a pretty long history of being discriminated against, being chased to different places, from place to place to place, and so they have an affinity with immigrants, especially refugees. And so that's why they despise Donald Trump, and that's why they support Mitt Romney. And so it's a pretty easy reelection that he'll have in 6 years. Besides, he will face no other consequences other than me tweets, which again will only help him with his strong supportive base. And then later on, he can come back and say, oh, no, 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 look at me. I bravely bucked the rest of my party and stood up to Donald Trump because Donald Trump is mean. Okay. And then add mid 2024. You don't think that's going to happen? Well, I think it's certainly possible. I think that this was a political calculation, and it's not without risk, mind you, as any political calculation is. Remember, Mitt Romney was Bain Capital guy, so he's kind of used to making, like taking these kinds of risks, right? And so, political calculation, I think Mitt Romney also personally hates Donald Trump, as I think most Republican congressmen do. Uh, Honestly, who out there really like that is around Trump honestly likes him? No, the guy's an idiot, and he's a narcissistic, basically asshole. Okay, so I'm not going to give Mitt Romney credit though, because I do think ultimately, in the end, whether at the end of this election cycle or if Donald Trump somehow gets 4 more years, which bears the thought, right? Romney's going to be remembered simply for this. And we're going to have a full rehabilitation of Mitt Romney, vaunted member of the resistance, right? Much like we've seen with George W. Bush for not being nearly as bad as Donald Trump. But make no mistake, Romney still, look, he's not a good person, right? And definitely somebody that I do not agree with politically on a lot of issues. All right, but now the attacks didn't stop there, right? Because earlier this morning there was a prayer breakfast, which Donald Trump, after parading around with the newspaper that said Trump acquitted, right? He said this.
As everybody knows, my family, our great country, and your president have been put through a terrible ordeal by some very dishonest and corrupt people. They have done everything possible to destroy us, and by so doing, very badly hurt our nation. They know what they are doing is wrong, but they put themselves far ahead of our great country. Weeks ago and again yesterday, courageous Republican politicians and leaders had the wisdom, fortitude, and strength to do what everyone knows was right.
Oh, the victimization here is just, it's amazing. Look at me, look at me. I'm a victim here. I did crime, in which, again, a lot of Republicans agreed that what he did was criminal, right? That what he did was, at the very least, inappropriate. You can't do that. But they still voted to acquit him, again, because of the fear, right? But no, my family and I, we were put through a great ordeal by very dishonest and corrupt people. They have tried to destroy us and badly hurt our nation. No, no, no. They didn't hurt our nation. They hurt you. And what they hurt is your fifis. That's the problem here. And so, look, there's so much projection in this, right? And like, they no super projection. And besides, you want to talk about corruption, right? The whole thing was corrupt. The whole process was also corrupt. You had Donald Trump literally giving vulnerable senators money for their reelection campaigns in order to get their votes to acquit him on impeachment. So, look, I got to ask those guys, how did it feel to take Donald Trump's dirty money? You feel good? Do you feel good? Knowing that this, of course, is only going to empower him to do even more crime. And that's what this is. Now, they refuse to hold him accountable. And look, I hope every one of them gets railroaded out of office in November. They deserve nothing less. All right. So now there's another clip here that I have. Let's go to that.
I don't like people who use their faith as justification for doing what they know is wrong. Nor do I like people who say, I pray for you, when they know that that's not so. So many people have been hurt, and we can't let that go on.
So many people have been hurt, mainly me, but, so many. I don't like people using faith against me because I don't have any. The only faith that I have is myself. I don't even know it's in the Bible, really. I never read the thing. I never read any of it. I just kind of hold it up as a prop, you know, because it dupes people. I mean, look, seriously, all he cares about is his money. Everything he does is to help himself. And so, more projection, right? He and the GOP, of course, use faith all the time to justify doing the absolute wrong things. That is literal Republican 101. And so I guess he's just like the rest of the Republicans in using that, faith in order to, or using religion in order to make terrible decisions. So, look, in fact, this has happened at the prayer breakfast of all places, which is a religious gathering on the right that helps Republicans politically. And of course, now he's talking about how impeachment is so unfair, such a terrible thing to happen to me and my family. How dare Mitt Romney use religion? Get out of here. Being acquitted does not mean that he didn't do crime, right? It just means that the people in power have refused to punish him for it. And that's the overall lesson. And that is something that he will never be able to get away from. Okay. Let's move on here. The internet now has a new reason to laugh at Charlie Kirk as well as Donald Trump Jr., as if there weren't already enough reasons to laugh at Charlie Kirk. In a tweet, Kirk claimed wrongly that Nancy Pelosi ripping up paper was somehow illegal. He said on Twitter, U.S. code prohibits the destruction of government records. Nancy Pelosi may have just committed a violation of 18 U.S.C. 2071, Section 2071A, when she ripped up President Trump's State of the Union address. This violation is punishable by up to 3 years in prison. Hey, you know what she ripped up? Copy. Is everybody at Turning Point USA that stupid? Seriously, I'm asking a question. Do they have like specific low IQ hiring requirements? Because it seems to be obvious that they hire the dumbest people, or maybe people that are willing to debase themselves and appear so dumb in order to get a paycheck. Maybe that's it too. But look, I don't even care about this controversy. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm over, I'm not over here like, ah, yes, Quinn, slay, like a lot of these liberals online, right? No, I don't care. I think it's stupid. I think that when it comes to resistance, this is super, super weak sauce. Maybe if she had ripped up Donald Trump's defense budget, then I'd be like, yeah, slay queen, yes. Now that's at least resistance, right? Not allowing Donald Trump to get all of his, his court picks, not confirming his picks for cabinet members. And I realize it's not the House that does that, but still, you know, not voting for allowing him to get gay people out of the military or all that stuff. You probably could have stopped that. But she didn't. She didn't stop any of that. And now Donald Trump's got more military funding. He's got more spying powers. And he's got Space Force. Space Force. So there we go. But again, this, mild, very tiny little tweak that's basically on par with is enough to trigger conservatives like Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump Jr. In fact, let me get to that. Right? Hold on here. Actually, before I do that, remember, like this entire thing of resistance. I'm not done with Pelosi. Apparently, look, it doesn't do anything to help the American people, right? So I just want to point that out because again, if you want to be the party of resistance and the opposition party, then maybe you should be opposed to them. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But anyway, this is a real outrage, and it's legally stupid, and as such has been spread all throughout the demosphere. Representative Dan Bishop is one of the first ones to pick it up, and he suggested that Pelosi should be removed from office over this. Now, look, I think Pelosi should be removed from office as well. That's why you should vote for Shahid Buttar, right? Who is running literally against her. That's at Shahid for Change on Twitter. Because I think he'd actually make a strong progressive Speaker of the House. And so definitely should replace her. But not over this, right? I think it's over being much more of an assistance to Donald Trump than anything else when it comes to his legislative agenda. Anyway, Donald Trump Jr. again chimed in to say the Democrats would have impeached his father for tearing up pieces of paper. That's kind of funny because there was also a report where Donald Trump shreds important documents all the time. And then there are people that literally have to go and tape them back together to put them into the record because of what he did was illegal. I don't recall that being an article of impeachment, and I actually don't agree that it should be because it's kind of stupid. I mean, I understand where there is, yes, you must have congressional record keeping, but why don't they just back those up into computers? Like, save it digitally. I'm just saying it would make more sense. And they probably do already save it digitally. So it's ridiculous, right? Which is why they don't go after Donald Trump on this same statute. Now, it's just, look, he's comically wrong. They're both comically wrong. And don't believe me, listen to Reuters criminal justice reporter Brad Heath. Now, he explains, quote, guys, this is about as correct as the argument that President Trump violated 18 USC 2704 when he sharpied a weather map. What's this to say? It's nowhere close. Oh my God, that feels like forever ago. Wow. Hey, guys, remember that time when Donald Trump sharpied a weather map so that he would be right about a storm hitting Alabama? Jesus Christ. What is happening? What has been happening the last 3 years? It's the stupid has taken over. And again, it would be so comical if it weren't reality. It's like a bad episode of The Office. But anyway, maybe it's like a season 8 episode. It's so bad. But anyway, he said, this is Brad Heath again. Among other things, 2071 is a specific intent crime. It prohibits willfully and unlawfully destroying records. and the government is required to prove that a person knew it was unlawful to do so at the time. Now, look, it's not really a stretch in Trump's defense to believe that he is too dumb to know what the law is. Of course, he's usually too dumb, or either that or he just doesn't read. And that said, Twitter had a little bit of fun with it, as usual, as they should. Um, Kip Ruse says, this kid's daddy gave a speech and all he got out of it was a mean lady tearing it up. Triggered much? Oh, they're so easily triggered by this. Radley Balco says, a GOP congressman has joined the chorus of cultists accusing the Speaker of the House of a crime for ripping up a copy of a speech. The base is salivating. Meanwhile, ICE now has permission to destroy records of human rights abuses. So that's a good juxtaposition there. He said, we're in dark times. No, I don't see a lot of reporting about that, actually, where ICE is able to destroy the records of their own human rights abuses. Great. Yeah, so welcome to fascism. Jack Wallen said, to prevent the spreading of misinformation, I will gladly inform you the document Speaker Pelosi tore up was a copy of the original, which is not protected under 18 U.S.C. 2071, Section 2071. Exactly. Franklin Leonard says, dumb person's idea of a smart person feels too generous, referring to Charlie Kirk, if only because most dumb people are almost certainly also thinking, look at this idiot. I love that. Dan Baer says, lucky for Charlie Kirk, being an idiot is not punishable by up to 3 years in prison. And Lachlan Markey says, the White House literally hired someone to tape back together the government documents Trump routinely shreds to prevent him from violating the Presidential Records Act. Mike Ciandella says, going to use this next time somebody asks me why I don't take Charlie Kirk seriously, as if anybody would. All I can see when I think of Charlie Kirk is the meme where somebody shrunk his face. Like, you can't unsee it. So now all I see is tiny face Charlie Kirk. Oh, and the fact that he lives like a capitalist every single day. I guess, man. Do you? I live like a capitalist every single day, Chank. All right. Pat Malik says, what's it like being this stupid? Is it like being drunk all the time? It's a good question. Because it actually might be fun. I mean, they do tell you ignorance is bliss. But then again, who knows? But look, what did I tell you? Pro-Trump conservatives, they're basically dying at the pettiness here to 11. In fact, Matt Gaetz earlier is now trying to go after Nancy Pelosi for ripping this up as well. And so it's stupid, it's crazy, it's insanity, and it all has to do with, of course, trying to harass or harangue the Democrats for daring to hold their leader accountable, for actual crime. Sadly for them, just like their leader, they're too dumb to go after the real corruption, the real crime. And that, of course, is money in politics. But neither side is going to touch that. Nancy Pelosi is not interested. And the Republicans and Donald Trump certainly not interested. But here you have grifters like Charlie Kirk, right? Charlie Kirk, all that guy cares about, I think, is getting that dark money. Because right now, there is a cottage industry on the right of people that are just, young people, right? A lot of student loan debt, right? To go in and to start spewing conservative nonsense for quick cash. I mean, Tommy Lauren, I think, is a great example of that. Do you really think that she believes the stuff that she believes? Oh, hell no. The most honest that she's been is when she said she was pro-choice. And she got hammered for it. I believe she got kicked off Glenn Beck's network over that. Again, that's the most honest, because you go back and there are videos of her in college talking about, okay, climate change is real. We need to do something about it. What are we doing? How do we fix this? Well, now, of course, way different, because she's not honest and she's not genuine. And just like Charlie Kirk, who I do think is kind of dumb, but still probably does it for the money. They all do it for the money because they're just looking to get paid. Okay. Hottest on the block, that's Candace Owens. Candace Owens. She's also another one of those pro-Trump grifters. So to answer your question. All right, anyway. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back. We've got, I'm going to thank some patrons, of course, channel members. And we're switch gears. We're going to go to Iowa. Again, I know you guys are probably sick of Iowa and everything that's been going on the last 3 days. We should have been done with Iowa for some time. But unfortunately, we got more of that stuff to talk about. And then, yeah, a couple of Iowa stories. But then we've got some fantastic news for the political revolution. So stay here on that, and we will talk about that. All right. We'll take a break. Please like and share the stream. Super chats are always welcome, and member comments right after this quick break on the nation.
Mike Pence.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TWT Nation. So apologize for the long break. I had some issues with my Stream Deck. So it's fixed. So we're good now. But yes, let's continue on with the show. First, I want to thank some members here. I want to thank Sylvia Ross and Foghorn2424. So thank you. You can sign up to become a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. Need your help more than ever. YouTube, of course, has been is basically delisted us. So we're not getting a lot of revenue from there. So we need your help to make up the shortfall to continue the show. So you can become a patron, like I said, or become a channel member as well. So thank you to the channel members. Speaking of channel members, I want to read a couple of comments here from you guys. Actus MAGA says, I'd consider buying a ripped up piece of speech signed by AOC, but not Pelosi. Well, of course not. Now, James Watson also says, if you want to see Pelosi gone, go donate to Shahid Buttar. Absolutely. So I believe that is Shahid for Change. And yeah, he's going to kick Pelosi's ass. Real progressive. All right. So let's go to, as one person puts it, the nightmare that is Iowa. Always fun. Okay. With the final results of the Iowa caucus sitting around 97%, supporters of Senator Bernie Sanders have started a hashtag called Bernie Won Iowa in order to counter what the mainstream narrative is of a Buttigieg victory. To be sure, Buttigieg did not win. In fact, Bernie Sanders now has over 6,000 votes. That is the popular vote, and that is, of course, bigger than obviously more of a lead than Buttigieg. And so what it really comes down to is the delegate count. So now the delegate equivalents do show, or at last that I've looked, did show Buttigieg had barely by like 3 delegates, or about 1/10 of a percentage point. Now, unfortunately, at the end of the day, the SDEs do count more than the popular vote, which is kind of ironic, as Pete Buttigieg had said, I would rather the votes count than things like superdelegates or SDEs. So it's an insane system. Now, I don't think Buttigieg is going to hold that lead. There are satellite caucuses that are going to be factored in, and those, of course, went heavily to Bernie Sanders. And so, look, if somehow they still claim that Buttigieg won, that's not going to be a good start to the primary. I mean, and if they claim that he won and he still actually lost, that's also a bad start, right? So the problem here, though, is his 3-day premature victory celebration. And that's one of the big problems here. Now, mainstream media has fortunately begun to notice this, right? Now, Politico reported that Buttigieg may not have won the Iowa caucus, but he is, quote, crushing the spin game. That's important, right? Because out of everybody, the only person to capitalize on all of these problems, right, was Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete. That's kind of strange. It's a very strange coincidence, right? Now, getting a lot of positive headlines in mainstream media and being able to give speeches where he talks of his victory in Iowa as the results basically trickled out very, very slowly and what seemed to be very intentionally. They gave Pete a pretty big advantage. And so Sanders supporters, they noticed this, and we did what we do. We call it out. Now, by Thursday morning, reporters for the New York Times, which the night previously had reported that or predicted that Sanders only had a 1% chance of winning Iowa, issued apologies for their premature assessment and issued new reporting that showed that there were, quote, many errors in what the Democratic Party has released, the Iowa Democratic Party specifically. Now, according to the analysis by the Times, more than 100 precincts reported results that were internally inconsistent. For example, you had Black Hawk County that was showing inconsistent numbers. They were missing data or putting out data that was not possible, such as delegates being switched from Bernie Sanders to Tom Steyer and Deval Patrick in the second round when you're supposed to have delegates locked in. If your candidate, of course, is above viability, which is 15%, to which Tom Steyer and Deval Patrick were not at all viable at that point. Joe Biden was barely viable at 15.4%. Now, in some cases, they said the vote tallies do not add up, and others' precincts are shown allotting the wrong number of delegates to certain candidates, as I had mentioned. And in at least a few cases, they said the Iowa Democratic Party's reported results do not match those reported by the precincts. So you have precinct chairs reaching out and saying, "Oh, whoa, 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 those are the wrong numbers. We have the numbers here." Because there were a lot of people, a lot of Bernie people that were running these Iowa caucuses that made sure to document their own results and made sure to, take pictures of the counts and everything like that to back themselves up just in case the DNC pulled any kind of trickery, right? And so they were caught. And so, of course, if this wasn't intentional, if it was just, and I'm not saying there's a giant conspiracy here, but that's a lot of coincidences, certainly. And all of it served to rob Bernie Sanders of momentum that he had rightly earned. Now, Crystal Ball went on CNN and she explains the impact and the effect that all of this, call it incompetence, call it trickery, call it a mix of both, what it is, unfair.
Well, I want you to think about this from the perspective of Sanders supporters who do not have a lot of faith in this process or the Democratic Party. To start with, all of this enabled Pete to basically claim a fake victory for days, enabled by the Iowa Democratic Party, the maker of this app, and the media that ran with headlines that were, Pete's in the lead. And the people who are real victims here are who is putting Sanders over the top right now or close to the top right now. It's the immigrant workers and the Latino working class people that campaign painstakingly organized, and their voices were erased from this for days, which in my mind is downright criminal. So Pete is not a victim here. Pete got 3 days of saying he was the winner. There's a new tracking poll out that has him up 9 points in New Hampshire. So all of this completely goes to show you that Sanders supporters are going to be absolutely mistrustful of this process, and rightfully so. Why were these votes released in this way? Why were there, even after they came out, so many errors? How can anyone even have confidence that the numbers are right at this point? It's absolutely outrageous.
She is absolutely right on this. Her analysis is spot on. Look, we are already distrustful of the process. Stuff like that makes it worse. So all of you guys that are, like saying, "Oh, come on, he definitely cheated." I don't blame you at all for that. I mean, I've got my own suspicions, and I've shared them with you guys on the show. And look, here's the other thing, right? So when we voice this over the last few days, as we have, talking about these inconsistencies and these reported errors and things not matching up, the number one response we got from mainly Pete Buttigieg supporters, but many of the establishment outlets, is, "Oh, we're just being conspiracy theorists. Not everything's rigged just because your guy didn't win. Come on, you're a conspiracy theorist." No. I'm sorry that we actually care about the democratic process, that we actually care to get accurate voting numbers. I mean, that's what this is about. This is about not about who wins, because if Bernie Sanders, and look, Bernie Sanders is likely going to win this anyway, and he's already declared victory. He's won the popular vote. So all you people who actually care about, "Oh, no, popular vote," right? Like all those are, Hillary won the popular vote. What are you talking about? She should be the president. Well, Bernie Sanders won the popular vote here in Iowa, there in Iowa. So, I mean, shouldn't you be making that same argument? I mean, I know of a couple people who are now, but I mean, where are you? Right? Uh, where's the rest of you? So look, all we care about is getting the correct vote counts to show who actually won. And whatever candidate did win, which is Bernie Sanders at this point, but even if it was in question before, to get that candidate the bump from Iowa that they deserve. Again, it's not about the delegates so much in Iowa. Yes, you need every delegate you can, or you want every delegate that you can, but really, this is about the media narrative going further and going forward and getting that momentum. And Pete Buttigieg unfairly stole that when he did that. If Pete Buttigieg is guilty of anything, it's capitalizing wrongly on something that he didn't earn. And that, of course, further, I think, hopefully will serve to turn people off Pete Buttigieg. Okay. Let's move on here. We got more Iowa stuff. Now, there's a new report out in Bloomberg that is alleging that part of the reason the results in Iowa were delayed so much was not due to, some DNC shenanigans or anything like that, but due to Donald Trump trolls clogging the phone lines. Now, this report says that the phone number to report the Iowa caucus results had been posted somehow on a fringe internet 4chan on Monday night, along with supposed encouragement to clog the lines. Now, there's an Iowa Democratic Party official who said that the influx of calls to the reporting hotline included, quote, supporters of President Trump who called in to express their displeasure with the Democratic Party. Now, this article goes on here, and it said that users of 4chan, or the politics section, the 4chan poll, repeatedly posted the phone number for the Iowa Democratic Party, which was found by a simple Google search, both as screenshots and in plain text, alongside of instructions. Apparently, one user allegedly posted at about 11 p.m. on Monday, they have to call in the results now. Very long hold times being reported. Phone lines being clogged. Uh-oh, how unfortunate it would be for a bunch of mischief makers to start clogging the lines, responded another anonymous user. Some other users chimed in, posting alleged wait times on hold, imploring others to clog the lines and make the call lads. So, Rob Sands, state auditor of Iowa, said he took the results calls on Monday night as a volunteer and said he received an influx of calls that appeared to have been generated by a post on the internet. Quote, a lot of calls came in at a certain point where it was clear somebody had published a hotline number somewhere. Okay. Now, he cautioned that he could not speak for other people who were taking calls and said he did not get any calls that said that they were from Trump supporters. He added that the system prevented people from reporting fake results. He also said he was able to identify fake calls quickly. Quote, if I picked up the phone and it was clear after the first handful of words that someone was not calling to report the results, I just hung up. So that's a guy on the ground who literally took calls. And he's like, yeah, we got a few of those. Somebody did put out that number, and that's weird, but I didn't get a lot of Donald Trump supporters, just people just, I don't know, being dicks, I guess. Now, Randy McClure, however, communications director for the Iowa Democratic Party, said the hotline received an unusually high volume of inbound phone calls to its caucus hotline, including supporters of President Trump. So directly, contradicting what Sand had said. But again, he only spoke for himself, right? Now, McClure says the unexplained and at times hostile calls contributed to the delay in the Iowa Democratic Party's collection of results, but in no way affected the integrity of information gathered or the accuracy of data sets reported. Now remember, this whole problem is the fact that there was a lot of data sets that were incorrectly reported by the official Iowa Democratic Party, which these caucus chairs and precinct captains were calling out even on social media and saying, hold on there, Chief, that's wrong. These are my numbers. You have reported my precinct incorrectly. Now, back to the report here, Iowa Democratic Party officials also said that party staff members and volunteers flagged and subsequently blocked repeat callers who appear to be reaching out in an attempt to interfere with reporting duties. These included callers who would hang up immediately after being connected and callers who expressed support for Trump and displeasure with the Democratic Party. So, look, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there on the ground. I wasn't taking calls, right? I can tell you that. For sure, though, that the irregularities, false numbers, giving delegates that belong to Bernie Sanders, people like Tom Steyer and Deval Patrick, who were non-viable in the second round, as reported by the leader of the Black Hawk County caucus, is not the work of 4chan or Trump trolls. That's what I know. That's on the IDP, right? It's on the maker of the app, which, of course, the problems in Iowa go far further than this app that didn't work. And so to me, do I think that this happened, that somebody published the phone number somewhere? Yeah, it's certainly possible, right? And that gets into further questions about, wait, who would publish that number on 4chan knowing that this would be the result? I don't know. You can really only speculate. Maybe they should do an investigation into that as well. Who knows? But look, I think that this makes a pretty good scapegoat, though. Oh yeah, the old Iowa debacle. I mean, yes, it's the app messed up and everything, but it's also Trump people. What's next? Russians? I don't know. Who knows? But to get slightly conspiratorial, why was that number not hidden? Shouldn't it be hidden? And if it was, how did the Trump people get it? Would that mean somebody leaked the number, put it out on the internet, knowing that there would be people willing to interfere with the caucus? That's even if it happened, because I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, if it was a concerted effort, I just don't know. Now, 4chan, users from 4chan, and I love, by the way, how this Bloomberg refers to a couple of anonymous users on 4chan as a representative of all of 4chan, right? 4chan users are saying we didn't do it. Well, who speaks for 4chan? They're all anonymous people. But one user said he didn't want the other trolls, referring to himself as a troll apparently, making us the scapegoat for the DNC. Another added, I can't wait for the news headlines saying nefarious trolls ruined the caucus. Well, they're already there. They're in Bloomberg. Which, by the way, Bloomberg, I think, has a little bit of a conflict of interest because Michael Bloomberg was also running in that caucus. But now what's funny about this is that this might shift some of the talk away from shadow and mainly a lot about the wrong results being repeated by campaign chairs or precinct chairs and other strange, shady stuff that would happen. It would shift the conversation to, oh, it's just 4chan trolls. And then we're not very far away from saying that it's also the Russians. So you can tell I am kind of skeptical about this, especially since we have people on the ground that do counteract this narrative. In fact, you have two precinct chairs that said that they were unaware of any interference with the hotline and doubted that even if it did happen, that it had made that much of an impact. Quote, this is Tom Courtney, co-chair of the Des Moines County Democratic Party and a precinct chair. He said, I wouldn't blame the Republicans. I'd love to blame the Republicans and the Trumpers, but I don't know. And then Mike Carberry, chair for the precinct in Iowa City, also said he doubted prank calls were the primary reason for the long wait times. And then, of course, that is the wait time for results to be reported, which, by the way, there are precinct chairs also saying that, hey, wait a minute. This is, again, going back to Black Hawk County, that we had given, or that they had given the results 24 hours prior to the Iowa Democratic Party reporting the results that were wrong. So, like, hey, we gave you the results from our caucus. We got all the numbers here. We sent that to you 24 hours ago. You publish it, but you published the wrong numbers. That's shady. What is going on here? And so it took social media posts to call that out. And then, of course, the DNC does get involved and say, well, we're going to have to do some quality control on this. And now they're talking about recanvassing with Tom Perez. And so That's not the fault of 4chan people or Trump officials or Trump fans. So come on. Look, there's a lot of things that you can blame on Trump. I don't think that this is it. And by the way, oh, let's see. I want to go to the quote here from Carberry first. He said, "I'm sure they got them calls. I'm sure they got some calls, but those could be sorted through relatively quickly." And again, I think probably they did get some calls because somebody published that number. But again, I don't think it's the reason that it took so long to report. And by the way that the numbers were reported by the Iowa Democratic Party actually did help Pete Buttigieg quite a bit. Because then for 3 days, he could walk around saying, "Look at me, I won the Iowa caucus." Got a 9-point boost in New Hampshire. So he got that boost that should have been to the actual winner of the caucus. So now, by the way, the Trump campaign, they weighed in on this, right? Since they're the ones being blamed, or 4chan, Trump people, etc. Now, Tim Murtaugh's Trump communications director says, quote, "We don't know anything about this, but perhaps Democrats should consider using an app that works." Ouch. It's laughable that they would try to blame Trump for their own incompetence. Man, when you're giving the Trump campaign ammunition, and by the way, I've seen this in a lot of places now, a lot of conservative memes and sites saying, "Oh, Democrats, you want the Democrats to run your health care? They can't even run an election." Oh, how do you just give them ammunition, man, by all this self-dealing and incompetence? I mean, it's disastrous. Whatever happened, it completely undermined the process and makes a lot of people question whether or not their votes are even counted. And we can't have that. Because let me tell you, that is exactly what Republicans in the establishment, that's what they're counting on. People to give up. What we have to do is to show up in such overwhelming numbers that any attempt of cheating would be invalidated, for one, and instantly be discovered. Because it'd have to be pretty blatant. Remember, they can only get away with it, this kind of stuff, if a majority does not show up. So always show up if you can, and because that will always end up beating the cheaters. Okay. All right. Super chat here from David Richardson says, "Is all the cover up for the DNC effing up the process and effing up Royal? What they tried to rig, no matter what they name, they still effed up Royal, and were caught." So there you go. Thank you, David, for weighing in on that. So now we got good news. Believe me, this is going to make your day. All right. Here comes Bernie. Now, while the results of the Iowa caucus continue to be pretty close, razor thin, Bernie Sanders holds a 6,000 vote count, vote lead with the popular vote, and slightly behind in delegates as of right now, with about 97 precincts reporting. The Sanders campaign has just announced that it raised a staggering $25 million in the month of January alone. $25 million in a month. That is by far the biggest fundraising month of the senator's campaign, and a larger haul than any of his 2020 Democratic rivals had posted in any full quarter of 2019. So the entire year, nobody got in one quarter above $25 million. That is amazing. Now, the campaign said over 219,000 of the total 648,000 January donors were new donors. So that is amazing. The average donation, of course, is around $18. The jobs, the professions that were the most represented was teacher. Teacher is the most common profession of January donors, and the most common employers were Amazon, Starbucks, Walmart, the United States Postal Service, and Target. So these are regular people, right? Working class people, regular humans, not giant donors and big wine caves, right? Or executives at Comcast, but regular working people, and that's important. And since they are regular working people, that means about 99.9% of Sanders donors are not maxed out since they cannot give the maximum amount. That means they can give again and again. Now, that right there is people power, and it's amazing. Now, Fez Shakir, Sanders' campaign manager, said, quote, Bernie's multiracial, multi-generational, people-driven movement for change is fueling 2020's most aggressive campaign for president. Working class Americans giving $18 at a time are putting our campaign in a strong position to compete in states all over the map. Now, speaking of the map, you're going to love this. New polling out from 538, that's Nate Silver's outlet, right? They now have Bernie Sanders expected to sweep the nomination in 49 states. Take a look at this. Look at that. Who will win the Democratic primary? Bernie Sanders has a 1 in 2 chance, more than anyone else, followed by, and this is my favorite part, followed by literally no one. No one behind Bernie Sanders. That is amazing. Oh my God, somebody please go check on Nate Silver. Like, he's got it. Is he okay? Is he okay? Check on this guy, okay? It's to make sure he hasn't hung himself in a closet, okay? Now, the New York Times also, they had something called an election needle, right? And I'm going to show you an example of that here. The election needle, hold on. This is the New York Times election needle, okay? And so it's got a forecast who's going to win Iowa, right? That had Buttigieg at a 95% win probability. Very, very likely, right? Bernie Sanders, barely possible at 1%. So now that's before the Iowa caucuses, right? And that was before we got to about 97%. Following that, we have this. The needle has been suspended. Bernie Sanders literally broke the needle. He broke the needle. Wow. Now, not only that, but he has been breaking a lot of brains as well. And so let me give an example. This is Dr. Jason Johnson now making the case that we should get behind Bernie.
But here's the thing, and I think this is very important coming out of Iowa, and I'm going to say this is very, very candid. If Democrats care about winning in the fall, if this ends up being a contest between Bernie Sanders and Mayor Pete, then people need to probably rally around Bernie Sanders, because Mayor Pete's ability to achieve, his ability to actually expand the voter base outside of Iowa doesn't look good. The guy is barely at double digits in almost any other state. Yes, he got a little bit of a bump in New Hampshire, but he is about to get rolled in Nevada. He's going to get rolled in South Carolina, and then he's going to be going up against an expanded field of people like Mike Bloomberg and Steyer when we get to Super Tuesday. If Democrats care about electability as opposed to voting their heart, they really need to think about these top 2 candidates and which one can expand the base.
If you care about electability, you should be looking at Bernie Sanders. That's essentially what he's saying. Because he said there's no path for Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg is going to get rolled in the South. Why is that? African Americans will not vote for Pete Buttigieg. And of course, all they have to do is look at what happened in South Bend, Indiana. Holy crap. Again, Dr. Jason Johnson, if you're watching this, you can unblock me on Twitter, brother. Seriously, because right there, you made a lot of sense, all the sense in the world, right? You were right. I agree with you. Oh, that's weird. Okay, anyway. But hey, willing to start off on the right foot now. Uh, but look, as far as electoral results go and predictions, because that's what they're doing right now, right? Anything can happen. Please do not take any of this for granted. Bernie Sanders hasn't won you haven't won the nomination until you've won the nomination, right? But this shows that he's in an excellent position to do so. He actually has a real path forward, but there is a ton of work to be done, which means volunteers, canvass, donate, knock doors, but also, and I think this is important, reach out to people who support other candidates. Because right now, the case can be made. No, you don't understand. Bernie Sanders is electable. He's not only electable in a Democratic primary, but he's electable in a general election too, as he can bring in independent and Republican voters with his policies who actually care about healthcare. And so he is electable. He can win. He has the money behind him. He has the army behind him. He is electable. More great news, by the way. The Sanders campaign also announced that it plans to boost spending and staffing in Super Tuesday states. And they're going to spend a $5.5 million television and digital ad buy in 10 states. That's Texas, California, Arkansas, Colorado, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Utah. This is your 50 state strategy. Now, that differs, going back to Jason Johnson's point, Mayor Pete, right? Mayor Pete's laser focus was on Iowa, and so he was very competitive there. And also now is because of that bump, somewhat more competitive in New Hampshire, right? But that's it. I mean, look, Pete Buttigieg, again, does not have an actual plan to win the nomination. He's not going to be able to. Now, you also have another candidate that's spending a lot of money. That's Tom Steyer. Tom Steyer is focusing mostly on South Carolina, right? That's the only other candidate that's actually spending a lot of money on advertising and actually has a lot of money to spend is Michael Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg has his own fortune. That's why he's not in any of these fundraising numbers, even though he has a massive, massive money advantage over Senator Bernie Sanders. And of course, that's why Johnson brings him up as well. It could end up being Michael Bloomberg versus Bernie Sanders in the end of the primary. Joe Biden's basically done. He got destroyed. And then Pete Buttigieg, he's going to fall off after New Hampshire. And so are we going to see Bloomberg versus Bernie? I hope so. Why is that? Bloomberg already is buying his way into the debates thanks to rule changes by the DNC and Tom Perez. So we're going to see not the next debate, but the debate following, Bernie versus Bloomberg. And that's going to be good for Bernie because Bloomberg's record is a disaster. And there is one concern that I have about Bernie Sanders, and I don't think look, my concern is that he's not going to be as aggressive as he needs to be against Michael Bloomberg. And now that he's definitively the Democratic frontrunner, they're going to be gunning for him massively. Not only mainstream corporate media, but whatever candidates are left in that debate that qualify for the next debate, they will be out for Bernie's blood. So, Bernie Sanders, he's never been in this position as frontrunner before. And they're going to lob everything that they have him. And I think he's aware of that. But I think he still has to go against his nature of not being aggressive. I think he needs to attack Bloomberg on his record. And I think he needs to do it in the way that he can. Salty Bernie, go after that record, stop and frisk. That's one of the main things that he can go for. The fact that he was a Republican up until about 2007, cheered on Bush's wars, all that stuff. That is the record, and I hope he goes after it. And I think, and I hope he can distinguish himself and prove himself to be the most electable candidate to take on Donald Trump. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Please consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. Obviously, We need your help more than anytime we've ever needed it before. So new patrons are always welcome to support the channel and make it so that I can keep affording the bills. So and keep doing this show. Most importantly, all right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you tomorrow.
Please clap.
Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.